Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Gilmore, and I'm the sales supervisor here at Disability Insurance Services. And I want to thank you for joining me today for another installment of our 10-minute micro webinars. I want to start by saying that we here at DIS strive to offer our agents new and innovative selling approaches. So I implore you to follow me for the next 10 minutes. Today's presentation is about a sales approach I call unit selling. And I guarantee that if you master this approach, you will definitely generate more sales. In fact, I think you're going to close at a much higher rate. Let's hop right into it. Let's hop right into it, and by discussing that there is a major problem that insurance agents have. This is a real problem. Let me ask you a question. This question is going to sort of describe the problem I'm talking about. The question is, do you have trouble closing sales to middle-income earners? I'm talking about the middle class, people who I think make probably, let's say, from $50,000 to upwards of $100,000. My experience at DIS as a sales supervisor and working with thousands of agents across the country is that the answer is yes. Most agents lose the sale when it comes to middle-income earners. You might ask yourself, why? Why are we losing these sales? People in the middle class need disability insurance too. Well, unfortunately, I hear that it's always associated with price objections, sticker shock, if you will. Most agents, when they sit down with their clients and they pass the quote that they ran for the client across the table, they hear that answer that, hey, disability insurance is too expensive. Or even clients will say, hey, I'm shocked, DI costs so much. Well, I think the bottom line is that we are taught from the onset of our insurance careers, from our disability insurance classes, to load up our policies for our clients with unnecessary additional premium riders. And I'm sorry, guys, the bells and whistles, all those added riders are killing our sales. I think the sad part about this is that I see agents make the same mistake of loading up policies with all those bells and whistles. I'm talking about like the non-cancelable rider, the COLA rider, maybe running the maximum benefit amount for a very long benefit period. Sometimes I even see agents run very short elimination periods that inflate the premium. They do this over and over and over again, and they lose sales over and over again. I have a fun quote that you'll see displayed here. It reads, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. You know, actually, Albert Einstein said this, and I know for a fact Albert Einstein didn't sell any insurance. He's probably the world's greatest scientist, but it's funny, this quote really does describe the frustration that I think a lot of you have when you sell disability insurance. So what I would say is if you continue to lose sales due to price objections, or for any reason for that matter, switch things up, break the pattern, use a different approach. Well, good thing today we are going to switch things up. I'm going to show you a new approach. That new approach is what I call unit selling. It's an approach that I believe will make insurance premiums seem more reasonable to the client. You know, I think the best way to describe unit selling is to set up an example. So let's start with an example client. Let's say that you've met a client who's 35 years old. Maybe he's working a desk job. He's a white-collar guy. He's bringing in a decent amount of income, around $75,000 a year. At age 35, this client probably has a family. So we've identified him as a good candidate for disability insurance. But being that he's only pulling down $75,000 and he's got a family, we should expect that this client has a very tight budget. He's the perfect client to unit sell. So the first step in unit selling is establishing your unit. What is that unit? Well, the unit is an increment of monthly benefit that you're going to end up showing the client. So disability insurance is paid out monthly. So a unit is an increment of that monthly benefit. So for this example, based on the client making $75,000, I think the first unit of measurement is going to be $1,000 a monthly benefit. So if I show one unit, it's going to be $1,000 a monthly benefit. If I show 2 units to the client, it's going to be $2,000 a monthly benefit. If I show 3 units, it's going to be $3,000 a monthly benefit, and so on and so on. So we understand what units are now. What about the plan design? Let's talk about that. I always recommend a 90-day elimination period. 90 days is truly the industry standard, and I really think it's unreasonable to ask a client who's only making $75,000 to wait any longer than 90 days if they were to go out due to a disability. I'm a big believer that you need disability insurance as soon as you can get it. But I would caution you, anybody who wants to use less than a 90-day elimination period needs to know that anything less is too expensive. So for the purposes of unit selling, use a 90-day elimination period. For the benefit period, I always say use a 5-year benefit period if you're going to do the unit selling method. This might throw a real wrench in what you believe in. I know that from the first days of me being taught as a disability insurance specialist, age 67 or Social Security retirement age is probably the best benefit period for our clients, which is true. But with unit selling, we're trying to make the premiums more reasonable. So to make you feel better about using a 5-year benefit period, let me throw a fact at you. The fact is that the Social Security Administration tells us that the average long-term disability lasts 35 months. Okay, so it lasts 35 months on average. So if you have a 5-year benefit period, you're insuring past the average amount of time that that client will most likely be out on a disability. So I think it's a safe bet to use a 5-year benefit period. Let's move on to the contract. What type of renewability provision do you have on the contract? I always say for unit selling purposes, let's go with a guaranteed renewable contract. That means all the provisions are locked in. The carrier can only raise rates if they did it on everybody. And I tell you that with all the carriers we have on our platform, the guaranteed renewable carriers that we have not raised rates. Okay, so they don't have a history of it. So don't be shy to use that. Also, if you wanted to go with a non-cancelable contract, it generally adds 30% of the premium. So it kind of goes flies in the face of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to lower premium. So always go with a guaranteed renewable contract. And then you know what? With unit selling, I don't like to put any riders on the contract. I think that the riders inflate the premium at this point. We don't need to do that. Most carriers have partial disability built into the contract. All right, so now let's go back to our example. We said that the client makes $75,000 a year. So based on that, let's determine the maximum benefit amount that this client would be eligible for. I'm going to give you a nice rule of thumb. Generally speaking, we can insure up to 60% of a client's income. And that also means monthly income. So when we use that calculation, we can definitely determine the maximum benefit amount. But I like to use the carrier issue and participation charts so I can be a little bit more specific. So for the purposes of this example, I'll use myself as the agent. I'm in California, and I know that for white-collar employees, standard insurance out of Oregon is quite adequate for white-collar employees. So what I would do is I would take the $75,000, knowing that fact. I would go to the standard disability insurance guide, and I would look up under the issue and participation charge $75,000. And when I do that, I see that $4,000 is generally the max. It might be a little bit more than $4,000, but I always say with unit selling, let's round to the nearest thousand. So let's say for example purposes, 4,000 is the max. Okay, so now we know our one unit is 1,000. We know the absolute max is 4,000, so we can have a total of 4 units. So now let's go to the how do we actually present this thing? So what I would do is I would turn around and I'd go to Disability Insurance Services, and I'd say, hey, run me 3 standard quotes. Run me one at 2 units, which is 2,000, one at 3 units, which is 3,000, and one at 4 units to show the absolute max. I want to show a low benefit, all the way up until the max to get some good pricing options. Now it's time to close the client. Okay, you've sent over the quotes. It's time to get that all-important yes from the client. So let's show those premiums off with our example here. So we have 3 quotes. We have the 2 units, the 3 units, and the 4 units. Well, those 2 units, the first quote, the 2-unit quote, that represents about 50% of what they're actually eligible for. Okay, $2,000 bucks. When you actually run the quote, it comes out for this example to be around $25 per month. And I always say show the monthly premium rather than the annual premium. So 2 units comes out to be $25 bucks a month. At 75% of what they're actually eligible for, which is 3 units, or $3,000 a monthly benefit, it's only $36. And then the absolute max that they're eligible for, 100%, 4 units, it's only going to cost them $47. So for our purposes, let's compare that against the bells and whistles method that we've all taught to use when we max out the benefit amount, maybe have a much longer benefit period, short elimination period, load it up with all the riders. Well, potentially you could send over a quote to this client worth $200 a month. Now I ask you, what if you're a client and you're hearing a presentation on disability insurance, you might not know a lot about it, does $47 a month sound a lot better than $200 a month? Absolutely. So I think at this point, I think you should see that the unit selling approach is really reasonable and that you're most likely going to get a yes out of a client. I am interested. I want to buy disability insurance. It is affordable. So congratulations, you're probably going to make the sale. This is when you upsell at this point. If you make the sale when you're taking the application and you're going over all the pages, you're going to get to a features page of the application. At this point, you can introduce the different elimination periods and the different benefit periods and the different features after you've gotten a yes from the client. So you've gotten that all-important yes, hey, you know what, 4 units sounds affordable to me. Well, when you're going through the application, you can introduce that longer benefit period just in case the client might be scared he might have a longer than 5-year disability. But the important aspect of unit selling is that you got the yes before you added the bells and whistles. Most people make the wrong decision of adding the bells and whistles and having to break apart that contract, and I think you really risk losing the client at that point. So I hope you took a lot away from this presentation. It's only a 10-minute presentation. Today's, I always recommend you going to our website. Our website has a lot of information on there. We have sales ideas, other sales ideas other than the unit selling approach that would be really helpful if you're trying to build your DI block of business. You can request a quote very easily online. If you have any policies in underwriting right now, our case managers in our underwriting department update the statuses daily, and so you can check the statuses online, or you can give us a call and we can go over the quote, any potential quote requests or any policy you might have in underwriting right now. So I want to thank you all. I hope you learned something. Let me check to see if there's any questions. I don't have any questions in the hopper right now, but I really hope that you use this new approach. And again, I can't say it enough. If something's not working for you, change it up. Try something new. I'm not saying that unit selling is the end-all, be-all approach. It's just a new and different approach in order to make a disability sale. So again, I thank you so much for having me, and I hope you all have a great day. Thanks a lot.